Happy to bring in our man, Matt George, host of the Locked On Kings podcast, as he joins dealing with KC here for the final time in 2021. What a wonderful year 2021 has been.
Matty McQueen, what's going on, man? Were we running it back? We're doing the same thing.
Yeah, you sipping? Like, what you?
I had to tone it back a little bit. I'm fresh home from a Christmas party with children involved, so I'm sobering up this week. But you know, if the content level goes down, we might have to make it a regular.
I believe Matty McQueen is everybody's new favorite version of Matt George, by the way. I just want to, so, you know, if anything else fails, just know you could dip into that McQueen and, you know, boost your followers, boost your YouTube subscribers, all of that stuff in one fell swoop.
I have a coworker at ABC 10 who listens frequently, and he talks to me the next time I see him. He goes, "Were you a little inebriated there, Matt?" No, 100% professional. By the way, can I work in the sports department?
That was working vodka. Not that wasn't shoot vodka. It was working vodka. That's
all it was.
As we settle in here to talk Kings basketball with our man Matt George, what do you think? It's difficult. I'll ask you rather than phrase it as a statement. Are you having a difficult time assessing this team right now with, you know, Doug Christie as the head coach and these guys on in health and safety protocols? Are you having a difficult time finding takeaways from games?
Yeah, it's hard to not necessarily care, but it's hard to find something really to pay attention to that carries significant meaning. Like one of the major things that I took away, and I kind of got in trouble with it last night on King's Twitter, or at least started some kind of debate with people thinking I was saying trade De'Aaron Fox. But like I'm searching and trying to find things from these games to like, okay, that can matter for the remainder of the season, given all the context of everything going on. And the thing that I landed on is Tyrese Halliburton playing as well as he had for these last 3 games. I mean, averaging 20 plus points a game and over 10 assists. I mean, over these 3 games, he's been playing very, very well. He's proven that he can be a primary scorer in addition to a primary facilitator, the main facilitator for this Kings team. And I was curious if he focused more on looking for his shot, if those assist numbers would drop off a little bit. And they haven't. They'd stayed strong. So basically my takeaway from that was, hey, now we have a little bit of context. Now Monty McNair has a little bit of context to how Tyrese Halliburton can fare as the primary guard if the Kings were to explore options of trading De'Aaron Fox. Not saying that they should, not saying it's even likely that they will, but before these last 3 games, we didn't really know what Tyrese could be as the guy, at least as the primary ball handler, without De'Aaron Fox. Now we understand it's only a 3-game sample size. So that's the biggest thing that I could really take away from this. The other thing too, is I want to give Doug Christie all the credit in the freaking world. It's unfortunate that, I mean, it's not unfortunate that these games count towards Alvin Gentry's record and not his own. I'm still going to say that Doug Christie has never lost to Greg Popovich and carry that with me as far as I can possibly go. But I mean, these games aren't meaningless for him either. And I think what he's proven is that even as quickly as him just being in his literally first year on an NBA bench, he is capable of doing this. He's going to be good at this. And I hope it's in Sacramento, but one day I'm not going to be surprised at all to see him at the helm of his own team here in the NBA.
Yeah, I really enjoy watching what Doug does on the sidelines and interacting with these guys, and even the way he works the officials. Like I love everything about the way he coaches that game. Do you think, I said this yesterday, I mentioned to James a little bit too. Do you think that there's a different level of reverence that these players have for Doug Christie? Not as a shot to Luke Walton or Alvin Gentry, but they just really, really love Doug and want to play for him and want to perform for him. Do you see that, or does it look about the same to you?
No, I think Doug has done a really good job to, as close as he can maximize this current roster. I think he's doing that. Now, I also wonder, had Alvin Gentry not tested positive for COVID. If Alvin was coaching this team right now, with this team being as shorthanded, would we get the response that we're getting? And it's hard to say no. That's not really a fair argument to make. I give credit to this Kings team as a whole. Guys who are getting opportunity are stepping up and playing hard. I know the Kings bench was pretty terrible last night against the Golden State Warriors, but then again, half of their bench is starting and the other half is out in health and safety protocols. So all that context is important. But I think the biggest takeaway for me with Doug Christie, and I think Tyrese said it very well. He answered a question of mine after the San Antonio Spurs win. I mean, if you watch on TV, if you're at the game, all you hear is Doug Christie talking. That's all you hear. And that's who Doug is. And I think Tyrese said it best when he said, look, Doug, that is the kind of player that Doug was. That's the kind of coach that he is. And now that he's gotten to a head coach, at least temporarily, position, he hasn't changed. He hasn't changed that part about himself. And Tyrese also did joke that he doesn't shut up sometimes, but you don't really see that kind of coaching style much in the NBA. Hell, you don't see that much in college as active and talkative as Doug Christie is. And this team seems to not necessarily depend upon it, but they react to it in a positive way, at least for the most part, from what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to be. And then again, it just, I guess if you're fighting to figure out what takeaways to pull from Kings games where, you know, a bulk of the active roster isn't there, and I think Kenny used this term yesterday, or Kenny or James, it's a free look at a potential head coach. Like, we had heard so much about what this organization thought of Doug Christie after the firing of Luke Walton, that now it's like, well, not only the front office, not only the ownership group, but now Kings fans get to see Doug. And I wonder if there were a fan base who maybe wasn't feeling the idea of Doug Christie as the head coach, particularly once he was labeled a Vivek Ranadive selection. Now they get to see him, and it's like, oh, maybe this isn't such a bad idea.
Yeah, you're speaking directly about me, D'Lo, because that's
exactly. That's some subtext there. Yeah,
absolutely. And I wear that. And honestly, it was never a anti-Doug Christie, or I don't know if Doug could be a successful head coach. I think he would have been set up to fail. I still think if he was named interim head coach with Alvin Gentry there, with all the experience that Gentry has, I think Doug was going to be set up to fail, especially with getting the Vivek Ranadive nod of approval over the Monte McNair nod of approval. Now, we don't know if that's the case or not. That's more speculation and more reports than anything else. So I'm not really going to go there. What I am going to say is, we know how many head coaches have come and gone and really struggled here. Does Doug want his first opportunity as a head coach, even an interim head coach, to be taking over a floundering roster in the middle of a disappointing season where changes can happen at any given time and fingers are going to be pointed left and right? Like, I thought it was going to be a bad situation for Doug. Plus, like I said, he's only been on an NBA bench. Now, he knows the game of basketball, lives and breathes the game of basketball. And even as a broadcaster, you'd see how many players, not just Kings players, but opposing players would come up and talk the game with him during shoot around. DCI or D'Lo, I know you were very keen to this. And even you, Kenny, the amount of times when we are allowed to go courtside during warmups back in those wonderful days, just watching Doug and the conversations that he would have and the teaching that he would give players on both sides. And he commands that respect around the league.
He did that for me.
Yeah, he does that for me with golf, and he's not even that good at golf. He's a lot better than me.
Don't let him hear you say that.
Oh no, I'm terrified.
You can criticize Doug about a lot of things. Don't talk about his golf game. He'll come for you.
I'm not going to pull a Deuce Mason though and call him old with him jogging up and down the stairs at the Chase Center though on Twitter. Deuce is a next level of brave saying stuff like that. But now I've come around to the idea. I mean, I did a whole segment on a recent podcast saying, I want the Kings to go through an extensive, correct coaching search. They haven't done that the last couple of times they've hired coaches. So I want them to do their homework, look at everybody, interview a bunch of people. But Doug definitely has to be in that mix. And if Doug does get hired, hey, why not? Like, what? It's a new, fresh opportunity, a familiar face, someone who understands this organization, who understands the city. And in addition to that, he's well respected around the league already. So why not give Doug just as good of a chance as anybody? That's how I've come around.
Yeah, I look at the thing, and I've looked at it this way from the start, and I understand everybody's concerns and everybody's apprehensions for just doing it all willy-nilly. But I really believe if Monty McNair, hell, even Vivek Ranadive, if you really believe Doug Christie is the right coach for your franchise and for this group, by all means, do what you have to do to make him the head coach. Now, you wouldn't want to necessarily do it right now because it's just a bad look. Damian mentioned it yesterday. It's a bad look. The interim head coach gets sick and you move him out or whatever. I'm not saying doing it during the season, but the argument that I continue to make is you got guys with boatloads of experience who fail every day. You know what I mean? You got guys that are career assistants and been waiting for their turn, and I hope they get it. And they get it, and they're out in 2 years. Like, just having the resume, that doesn't tell us really anything. You know what I mean? If you're going to make it or not. It's that person. Like, you interview that person, and if you believe that they have what it takes, you put them out there. And I don't have if the Kings went with Doug Christie, I know nobody wants it to be even longer, but what do you have to lose? Like, everything else you've done in the past hasn't worked. Go with Christie and see if maybe this is the thing that helps this franchise turn around. I don't have as much of I understand everybody's apprehension for it, but I don't have as much of a problem with it as others might have.
Casey, a good example of what you're talking about to some extent is like Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors, right? Like, Kerr got his opportunity and he's now been there for 8 seasons, which it feels like a lot longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Mark Jackson, I think, set him up nicely and Jackson deserves some of that credit, but Steve Kerr ultimately took that team to one of the greatest teams of all time, and he's still there and deserves to be there. The only thing that I disagree with what you said is that if he is the Kings guy, still go through the extensive interview process, because we blamed Vlade for doing it twice. Dave Yeager, people forget, like, initially Vlade wanted Walton. Walton wasn't interested in that job. He went to LA. Yeager got fired, became available, and he was hired very, very quickly. Not as quickly as Walton was hired after he was fired by the Lakers, but Vlade did that with 2 coaches in a row, and we ripped Vlade for that, especially when Sam Amick reported that Monty Williams wanted this job, and I think we all would prefer Monty Williams to be on that bench right now. But in the end, like, even if you think Doug Christie is your guy, interview him. Absolutely. Make sure he's part of that process. And you can even go in with the understanding that he is the front runner before even talking to anybody else, but just talk to other people, talk to different candidates out there, and do your due diligence, because you can't afford to just fire the first guy you see, fall in love, and it fail again.
I understand. I completely understand. And I agree that's what you should do, but it's all results based, because if they don't do that, and Doug leads this team to like 5 straight Western Conference final, are we going to care that they didn't interview anybody? No, it's all about, or if they go through the process and they interview a bunch of people and they still decide on Doug, and Doug is out after 3 years, we're not going to be like, well, they did go through the interview process. No, we're just going to care that they didn't get it right. So I understand, but at this point, it is 100% results based with the Kings' next head coach.
Matt George of the Locked On Kings podcast with us here on D-Lo and KC. Another takeaway, and it's the big one. It's the one that all Kings fans are talking about. It's the one we've been talking about. It's what the phone lines have been out for. And it's Tyrese Halliburton's play over the last 3 days, over the last 3 games with De'Aaron Fox back in health and safety protocols. We'll ask you the question we've been asking ourselves, that we've been talking about, all day, even extending, into yesterday as well, is why can't we see this version of Tyrese Halliburton when De'Aaron Fox is around?
It's a question that the Kings need to figure out. It's a question that Doug Christie and Alvin Gentry need to come together to try to figure out, because I tell you what, if the Kings are able, now I don't think it's realistic to expect Tyrese to average 20 and 10 right now, maybe eventually, but when Fox comes back, I don't know if it's necessarily realistic to expect that out of Tyrese for the remainder of the season. That being said, if you can get this level of offensive production, scoring, and assisting from Tyrese, in addition to the 20 plus points per game that we should just outright expect from De'Aaron Fox, all trade conversations and hypotheticals that we were throwing around on Twitter last night and I threw out in my podcast last night, all of that goes away, because at that point, you have the core that the Kings hoped that they had going forward. So I don't know what the fix is. I don't know what the change is. I think we put the term positionless basketball is important. Sometimes it's overused a little bit. Maybe you explore the idea of having Tyrese, even when De'Aaron comes back, have Tyrese be your primary ball handler, and have De'Aaron play more of a 2-guard role, give him catch and shoot opportunities, still let him create and isolation ball and get to that mid-range jumper that he loves so much and try to attack the basket. You don't have to completely take the ball out of his hands, but if you go from 50-50 split between the two to 60-40 favoring Halliburton controlling the offense, hey, what does that look like? Is that any different? Is that better? Is that worse? Like, that's what I think you have to explore, because Tyrese has proven that, like I said earlier, while continuing to be that facilitator and that assist man, he can look for his shot. And I think what I like the most about these 3 games is that he hasn't forced his shots. They've come in the flow of the offense, even when he's taken threes where nobody else touched the ball. It was in a transition, or it was a good look. It was shot with confidence, without hesitation. Like, that stands out to me, because he knew that more offense was going to be on his shoulders, and he didn't force it. He let it come to him naturally. And that's what we've been seeing really all season long, and even going back to last year, except he'd passed that shot up. Now he was taking it more, and the results are there. So see what it looks like with Tyrese having more of those ball handling responsibilities and working Fox with that. That doesn't mean Fox is being demoted, but see what you have there. Try that out a little bit.
Do you believe that these two can work together and be successful, like be a winning team together?
The two of them, yes, I really do. Now, I think they need a third star if they want to actually do anything. And I'm talking about winning and like Western Conference Finals and NBA Finals appearances. And maybe that might not be enough. But I think these two are certainly good enough to have this team in the play-in and as a playoff 8th or 7th seed actually making the playoffs. I think the two of them are good enough. Maybe not necessarily with this group, but you can build around the two. That has waned. I have less confidence in that than I did coming into this season. But before all these health and safety protocols started happening, we were seeing the two getting more comfortable playing together. We still want Tyrese to be more aggressive. We still want De'Aaron to hit more outside shots, obviously, but we were seeing progress, certainly a lot better than the beginning of the season, where it looked like one was in the corner when the other was touching the basketball. So I do believe that they can be effective together, Kenny.
Gotcha.
Does that fall on the coaches to get them more actively involved together, or does that fall on them individually, Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox, to get more involved individually when they're on the floor together?
It's a cop-out answer, but I think it's a mixture of both. Like the coaches
That's not a cop-out.
The coaches have to know how to run an offense that features the two of them. And I think they have to find 3 players that work well with the two of them. They already have one of them in Rashawn Holmes. Rashawn works very, very well with Tyrese. He should theoretically work very, very well with De'Aaron Fox, and I would love to see that relationship get better. Harrison Barnes theoretically should work really well with them too. It's about finding that either 4 or another wing to pair with them that I think is the big thing missing with this group as a whole, at least as of right now, amongst many other things. But then it's also on the two of them too to understand, okay, like Tyrese or De'Aaron, for example, when he is playing off the ball, if Tyrese is that majority ball handler role, okay, Fox, find a way to still be effective. Find a way to cut to the basket and draw in defenses to give, or so that they continue to respect you, to still open up that space, even if the ball's not in your hands. And same thing with Tyrese. Ty, you're an offensive, or you're a 3-point shooting threat. Make teams believe that if the ball touches your hands, it's going up, and continue to space that floor. So I think it's a balance between the two.
Is there anybody else in this health and safety protocols ravaged team that has stepped up to you and kind of caught your eye? I'll give you an example. I feel like Chimezie Metu has done some good stuff out there. I've seen him be more active. I've seen him try to step his game up, and I've liked what I've seen from him. Is there anybody that has kind of caught your eye while this team has been shorthanded?
Chimezie Metu is definitely up there, and I loved his unnecessary spin move that still looked really pretty. That even was like,
seen that before.
You didn't have to do it, Mezzi, but all right, it looked cool. Like, cool. And it counts the same. Like, Chimezzi's been playing really well. I've been really impressed with his defense as well as his offense. He had 4 steals, I think, in the first half against San Antonio. Had a couple of block shots last night. Was not afraid to go at both Draymond Green and I think Jonathan Kuminga. I think Steve Kerr actually talked about Chimezie before the game, talking about how tough of a matchup that was going to be for Kuminga, who ended up getting hurt and not really playing too much, unfortunately. But very impressed with him. And I'm a big fan of Damian Jones. I really like how Damian Jones plays. I know what Damian is going to bring on a nightly basis. Both D'Lo and Damian Jones. I know what they're going to bring on a nightly basis.
Damian Lee.
What?
Damian Lee.
Damian. What did I say?
No, he's asking you, Damian Lee. He's going to run through all of the different Damians.
Of course.
And the chat was talking crazy about Damian Lee yesterday. He had a pretty damn good game.
Yeah, I like Damian Lee a lot. You know who I also like a lot is Gary Payton Jr. the second, or Gary Payton the second.
Payton Jr. the second. I like that one.
That's like on tape.
Whatever. He's all those names. He's really impressive as well.
It's a wild day here on D'Lo and KC, boy. We broke down Leon's whole acting career from the 5 Heartbeats to the Temptations, and now we've got references to Gary Payton Jr. the second,
and that's without the McQueen.
This is sober. This is a sober edition of Matt George.
But I'm a big fan of Damian Jones. I like what he brings. I like the intensity that he plays with. I still don't know how he necessarily gets in. I think he warrants a conversation for minutes ahead of Tristan Thompson and Alex Len. He's still just behind those guys, and it's tough. But when he plays, more often than not, I think good things happen. He doesn't make too many mistakes. I think he's close to being, whether it's here in Sacramento or with another team, I think he's close to being a consistent contributing big man role player off the bench. I think he's that close.
Just so this video isn't used as evidence later, you're not ignoring the baby, are you?
Oh, you can hear him?
Yeah.
He's very pleased because
he's a big Damian Jones fan too.
Yes, he's a very big Damian Jones fan. Yeah. He was watching Buddy Hield's shot selection in the first half last night. It got better in the third quarter. It got better. I can't drag my guy Buddy too much.
He stepped it up and was balling in the third quarter.
Buddy Hield makes me cry too. So I don't know.
No,
what to say.
It's past his nap time. It's past my nap time too, truth be told.
I did theorize that you mentioned Rashawn Holmes and Tyrese Halliburton and that relationship that has been established there. But we saw how well Damian Jones played with Tyrese Halliburton a couple of nights ago. Now, for whatever reasons, it didn't translate last night, and that could be a byproduct of the opponent, or it just could be maybe that's not exactly who Damian Jones is. Maybe he's somewhere in the middle. But Kenny and I theorized that maybe they need Tyrese has a type. He get him an athletic big that he can, kind of play the role of Chris Paul with.
Yep.
And just find someone around the rim, and that's a happy Tyrese right there.
We've seen comparisons of Tyrese Halliburton and Chris Paul, and that's one of the biggest ones right there is you pair Tyrese, you pair Chris Paul. How many athletic bigs has Chris Paul gotten paid? I mean, Chris Paul got DeAndre Jordan, Clint Capella.
Yep.
I mean, Tyson Chandler.
He hasn't gotten the bag yet, but he's working his ass off with DeAndre Ayton right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with you 100% because Tyrese and Chris, they both comparing our basketball skills to an NBA player is just stupid and a waste of time. So I'm going to do it. Throwing a lob is really freaking hard. Like timing a lob, putting it in the right spot. Tyrese does it from half court without blinking. He did it the other night with Chimezie Metu. He was barely over half court, puts it on a dime for Metu, who was cutting. Or just cut back door. That's very difficult to do. So that's a skill set that both he and CP3 possess. And you're absolutely right. It's because Tyrese is very smart. He knows how to work the pick and roll. His float game is on point as well. So if you choose to stick on the big man, he can score in a lot of different ways. I imagine Rashawn loves every second of playing with Tyrese Halliburton. I think he said so as much. And even Tyrese has said, after a game, he said, I learned pretty quickly that if I wanted an assist, I play in the pick and roll with Rashawn Holmes. So it's a good pair between the two. I don't know if every single athletic big can work with Tyrese because it also requires the big to know what he's doing. But Rashawn Holmes, Damian Jones.
Hey, get by the basket. I'll take it from there.
just catch the ball and dunk it. Just jump.
Just be athletic, and I'll take care of the rest.
Hey, that's a tough question for some people.
Yeah. Now, all right.
Oh boy, it's one of those questions. Jeez, you got to take a breath before he asks.
I want to get back to this situation with De'Aaron and Tyrese.
Mm-hmm.
More so with De'Aaron because I've been a little hard on him. I've expected a lot out of him this season, and he hasn't always produced. But do you feel, because I know you get interaction on Twitter and everything, Do you feel like the fan base is kind of jumping out the window and kind of over exaggerating being ready to move De'Aaron Fox? I think it's a little crazy how quickly they're like, yo, let's move him. Tyrese, give him the keys. Like, number one, it doesn't have to be that. Like, you can have more than one good player on the team. And number two, like you mentioned earlier, give these guys an opportunity to work through some things and figure some things out. Do you find that in your interaction with some of Kings fans, that I think they're moving a little too fast with even thinking about moving on from De'Aaron Fox?
Yes, and I may have unintentionally contributed to that with
thanks a lot.
tweeting out what I did last. I may have given those people fire a little bit more than I intended to, but yes, absolutely. Like
unintentionally, right?
I'm taking shots at De'Aaron Fox now. I'm going to do a diss track on De'Aaron Fox. That's my next track that I'm working on. No, I mean De'Aaron is still what we believe to be star player. I still believe can be the guy to lead this Kings team back to the promised land, whatever that looks like, if that's a championship or simply just making the playoffs, at least in the short term. Just because he got off to a slow start and we have the context of 30 or so games so far this season, that doesn't erase the positives that the two of them did together last season. That shouldn't drastically change the excitement that all of us in the Kings fandom had for the pairing going forward. I still do believe it can work. Now, our guy Josh, I think Eberle is his last name, right? I want to make sure I pronounce it. He posted a picture of Monte Ellis and Steph Curry together, suggesting that Tyrese was Steph and Fox was Monte, and maybe he's having fun with that. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's not the case whatsoever. I do believe De'Aaron Fox is more than still a prominent contributor in the NBA. He just turned 24 yesterday, right? I think he just turned 24. Like, he's not even sniffed his prime yet. He and Tyrese haven't played a full season together. Technically, last season obviously wasn't a full season. So there's so much more that these two can do together. And when I suggest and talk about the possibility of trading De'Aaron and the context that brings, remember, I'm speaking from the desire for this team to make a swing for the fences move. And if you're considering a move like that, then you have to consider involving De'Aaron in conversation. That was the whole point in me bringing up the context that we had from Tyrese over the last 3 games. That doesn't mean that the Kings would be in a better spot just moving him flat out and committing to building around Tyrese. And that's an over an exaggeration from fans to think that 3 games of Tyrese without Fox. It's the same way that Memphis Grizzlies fans, I guess right now are saying John Morant needs to stay out because the Grizzlies were playing well without him and they lost the first game that he came out. Like, that's ridiculous. John Morant is still far above and beyond the best player on that team. He's an absolute superstar. That team's going to figure it out. They just need time to work together. Same thing with De'Aaron and Tyrese. I have all the confidence in the world that the two of them will be able to figure it out. I just don't know if the Kings could take a shorter path in getting a star player potentially by including De'Aaron. And the list of realistic players for the Kings to go out and potentially get for De'Aaron, that list for me is very, very short. And guess what? Ben Simmons and Domantas Sabonis are not on that list.
No, sir.
Not at all.
I'm with that. Who is? Like conceivable, like Brown. Realistic. Okay.
Like, and when I say realistic, I don't mean, hey,
and that might not be realistic.
It might not. It might not. But like, I'm talking about, there's a scenario where the Celtics might be trying to move on from something, and Jaylen Brown could be available. And if you're going to get Jaylen Brown, De'Aaron has to be in the conversation, and I'd be willing to do that. I don't know if the Celtics say yes. I actually probably not. They probably need more on top of De'Aaron Fox, which makes things like, oh man, do you really want to go that route? But that's a swing for the fences move that Monty could potentially go for. Jaylen is honestly the only one realistically on that list right now for me. They're like Pascal Siakam, not enough for me. Truth be told, and I like Siakam a lot. Not nearly enough for me, because in my mind, if you're trading De'Aaron Fox, you're not getting a player that is going to be second fiddle to Tyrese Halliburton. I think that's my major point. If you're trading De'Aaron Fox, you're bringing someone in who is going to be alpha.
The star.
And Tyrese's job is to facilitate and score around that guy. Right. That's what you're not bringing in. You're not trading De'Aaron for draft picks and an exciting young player who becomes the Robin to Tyrese's Batman, because then you're in the same damn spot. If actually you're worse. Like that, the only way I'm trading De'Aaron Fox is if I'm getting a bona fide player who's going to come in and make this team better day one.
Give me Bradley Beal, and we'll have a conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Damian Lillard. Absolutely. Like these, but those are not necessarily the most realistic. I think Jaylen Brown, there's potential there when there wasn't 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something. I still think very, very highly of De'Aaron, and I want to think highly of the pairing of De'Aaron and Tyrese, but I want to see more of it. And that's not like 2 weeks of it. I want these two to play together the rest of this season. And honestly, I want to see a lot of changes to the roster. I want to see these two play together next season. Like I want these two to have an opportunity to grow together, to think that they should have it all figured out. I can't even imagine it's 82 games into their, career together. I think is foolish of us.
I think it was like 80 or something like that.
It might be. Yeah.
I don't know if that's 80 games that they've played together or just 80 that Tyrese has been on the roster with De'Aaron. And Tyrese missed a lot of time last year. De'Aaron missed time last year. De'Aaron's missing time right now. So who knows? Who knows? Give him more time for sure.
Are you are you all about more Mo Harkless, Buddy Hield exchanges, or more exchanges along those lines amongst members of the Sacramento Kings?
I agreed with Doug Christie when he said he liked that, and it shows that people care. We've been asking for stuff like that, and we've been asking for someone to be that fiery leader, and Mo Harkless has kind of stepped up. I mean, he had that moment against the Spurs where it looked like he was going at Buddy from the angle that Sean Cunningham recorded. And he was clearly bothered, clearly agitated. And then we got the video where it was less agitated Mo Harkless still talking to Buddy Hield, and you could see him coaching Buddy and saying, this is what you need to do. And I don't know what the context was. I don't remember whether it was an offensive play or a defensive play. But I think it had something to do with a defensive mistake from Buddy Hield, and Mo was trying to hold him accountable for that. And that's what this team needs. And it's not just Mo Harkless is the best and absolutely knows what he's doing and is the LeBron James of this team and is talking down to people. No, Mo knows that he needs to be better, especially offensively. But if Mo can help hold Buddy Hield accountable for the things he does on the floor, hell, hold Tyrese, hold anybody accountable. It doesn't just have to be
that's
Buddy
not
Hield.
Talking down to someone.
No,
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Being a teammate. We're out here talking. We're trying to get this thing right. That's what that is.
But I think some fans misconstrue it as, Mo Harkless, who can't score more than 5 points in a game, is talking down to Buddy Hield, who had 20. It's like, no, that's not what it is at all. It's accountability between teammates. It's leadership. It's what you've been wanting to see. I loved every second of it. I want to see it more. And if Mo Harkless has to be that guy, but if it gets a response, Doug said it got a response in the Spurs game. I agree with him. If it gets a response, a positive response, hell yeah, Mo, keep talking.
Yeah. Matty McQueen, your first Christmas as a father, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, man. You ready? You got it. Is the tree ready to go? Is everything under the tree ready to go? Presents wrapped? We ready, right?
The tree is still in a box.
Oh my!
We've been terrible. We've been really, really bad. No, the tree is in the living room, but in a box. We have the absolute
at
worst.
This point, you might as well wait till next year. Don't even take it out of the box.
We got it.
Just stand the box up and put the presents around it.
That's a good idea though. That'll take less time. No, this is the first year that we're doing a fake tree too, because I'm normally a real tree guy, but those nettles just get everywhere. We've been slacking this year, man. And I guess I could blame the new baby, but it's really just my own laziness. The rest of the house is decorated. We just don't have the tree up, which is stupid, but that's where we're at. But the tree will be up tonight, and we're taking the baby to look at Christmas lights tonight. So
nice. Where are you going?
We're going to Bayside Adventure Church in Roseville does a drive-through light thing. And then there's also a neighborhood in Rockland where I used to grow up that did lights that we took him to see the other night as well. So he's into the lights. So now we just got to get the tree and the lights up in our house. But we're already expecting, we only got him 1 or 2 gifts because grandparents and aunts and uncles are already flooding him with stuff. We have little room as it is. So there are going to be boxes behind me of kids stuff when you see me next time.
And just to be clear, he's 3 months old.
He'll be literally 4 months on Christmas Day. Yeah.
I think Reach was a little more than a month, and he cleaned up on that first Christmas.
Did you get him?
He's a
little over a month. That means did we just pass his birthday? Oh, we did just pass his birthday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we did just pass his birthday. Did you get him a Buddy Hield jersey?
Not quite. Not quite.
Did you get him any Kings related gear?
Hell no.
Oh, damn.
No. He does.
D'Lo and Casey shirt.
Do you have them in kids and baby size? Because
I will make them in baby sizes for the young George.
I'm about that. No, he does have a couple of Kings onesies already, and we already got the massive noise canceling headphones that we've tested out on him to see how he likes it. He'll be going to his first game, hopefully a little bit later on in this season in early 2022. I'm hoping to be able to take him out there. A little nervous with how things are going on right now, obviously, but I want to get him out there because that's the environment that I loved as a kid. So I'm looking forward to having those memories with him for sure.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Sure as hell not going to take him to Oakland to see Mark Kotze. No disrespect to Coach Kotze, but
you're not happy with that hire, huh?
No, I'm not going to be happy with any hire when Bob Melvin is the guy that left. Like it could have been anybody, and I wouldn't have been happy with it just because I'm such a big Bob Melvin fan. But honestly, all things considered, it's as good of a hire, I guess, as it could be. I'm happy for Kotze. I like Kotze, so I'm interested to see how it goes with the A's. Not that we're going to see baseball anytime soon.
No, we're not. Gabe Kapler, he's a young, new generational guy. He worked for the Giants. Maybe it worked for you guys.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you've got at least 2 years before you got to worry about. Do we call him AJ?
You can call him AJ. That's one of the many options that he has.
Okay, before AJ gets to see baseball.
Yeah, well, at that point, we'll probably be taking him to Vegas anyway. We'll be taking him to Vegas to see the A's and the Raiders play. So that'll be fun.
Family friendly place that Las Vegas is.
The new Oakland.
Literally, it's the new Oakland.
It's becoming it.